Welcome to A Dram of Outlander. This is Desiree, your podcaster and the writer for ADramOfOutlander.com. For all things Outlander, from the Diana Gabaldon book series to the Starz TV series, and anything interesting that falls between. This is podcast episode 163, and we're covering season 4, episode 412, Providence. It is directed by Mairzee Almas and written by Karen Campbell. Hello! Well, I know this podcast is terrifically late this week. It's been quite a week indeed. I had several plans to record, and they were all pushed aside for other things that needed me. Okay, well, I'm here, and it's getting done, so that's the important part, right? We are on the cusp of the finale, and I know many of you are very upset because Droughtlander is upon us yet again. I estimate, based on the shooting schedule not starting until February 2019, so in another month, that we will not see season 5 until January or February of 2020. We'll see. I totally could be wrong. I have no control, and I am not an insider. They don't ask our opinions, those of us who do inspired websites or podcasts, etc. So, this episode was very difficult for me to watch the second time. I simply cried at the end. It was difficult to take notes. So moving. Incredible. I think Rick Rankin really solidified himself as Roger. Like, he is Roger. You don't see the actor anymore. You simply see the man. Ugh. So beautiful. Okay. And the summary goes something like this. Roger completes the initiation and remains a slave. He is known as Dogface. Fergus plans. Lord John brings Brianna news. She requests an audience after reading her father's letter. Brianna and Lord John share an intimate moment. Roger works in the village. A woman with a baby helps Roger. Brianna and Lord John make a visit. Roger breaks a cultural rule. He meets a priest. He learns his location. Marsalis deduces the plan. What would Jamie and Claire do? The priest is tortured. Roger prays. They dig. The priest is taken away. Brianna and Lord John arrive at their destination. An escape is made. The jail explodes after Brianna says her piece. Roger comes to a difficult decision and returns to the idiot hut. Okay, so before doing anything, I really wanted to look at what does the word Providence mean in this situation. Providence means the protective care of God or of nature as a spiritual power. So the synonyms are fate, destiny, nemesis, kismet, predestination, predetermination, astral influence, fortune, fortuity, serendipity, chance, luck, accident, coincidence, one's lot in life, etc., right? So there's kind of the outward or the outside influence of providence by divine. God or nature is providing protective or spiritual care. timely preparation for future eventualities. Prudence, foresight, forethought, judgment, shrewdness, circumspection, wisdom, sagacity, common sense, precaution, caution, care, thrift, economy, forehandedness. So by this definition here, or these definitions here, we have to look at this episode kind of in a different view based on the title. And so as I watched this episode, I was trying to figure it out. So with Fergus planning to break Murtagh out, that is Providence. He was thinking about what he was going to do. He was using his judgment. He was taking precautions. As was Marsalis. She got the wagon ready and got all their belongings in it with a cover, because that's how they got away with Murtagh, right? And if we look at in the context of, say, Roger and the father, the priest, Père Fergus, well, that could have been looked at as Providence, that they were in that hut together, and that Roger was able to pray for them, pray for Père Fergus, and that they were in the same place at the same time. It gave Roger the ability to speak his mind and to work out his own issues surrounding love and being an idiot and what the father should do, right? Who is he loyal to? So that he was there right at that time was providential in my mind. And the impact that those two characters had on each other, again, Providence. Brianna going to speak her piece to Bonnet and to offer forgiveness was really to protect herself and the future of her baby. So she was thinking in the same way. She's preparing for future eventualities in a timely manner. So all of this fits in with Providence, down to the detail of what each of them did. So I do like the title. I think it fits beautifully. And no, I haven't read the script this week because time was not on my side for such things. And I did not watch the little afterpiece that usually show Tony and Matt. I didn't see that part this week. Kind of purposely. I turned it off because I just wanted to do the podcast, and I'll go and watch it later, make corrections if I need to. So, what else do you get from the word Providence? I mean, was it coincidence that Fergus was in the jail trying to break up Murtagh at the same time Brianna and Lord John were there? Yes. So all these little actions kind of move together under the term Providence. So I kind of broke this down into a few different sections. Like Brianna's and Lord John's section is conflict, friendship, protection, forgiveness, and confrontation. Like it's all mixed up in here. And then we have purpose and friendship that really looks at what Fergus and Marsalis are doing. And Roger, I put biding time, kindness, reflection, conflict, and crushing reality. And then I have a section called freedom because I think that really ties into the letter, that beautiful letter that we heard Jamie's narration as Lord John read it while he and Brianna were out on the porch, the veranda, as it were. Freedom is another key element in this episode. Lots of different types of freedom. Emotional freedom, physical freedom, spiritual freedom. They all fit in. Societal, or free from society, I guess we should say. So I'm going to kind of go through these and we'll go from there. So Brianna is upset that her rape is not among the charges when Lord John brings her the news that Stephen Bonnet has been arrested and is being held. And she really wants it added, but the culture of the time would say that she would be dragged through the mud and she would be a marked woman for being raped. It doesn't matter if it was her fault. I still do not understand that mindset that somebody who was attacked or victimized is the one at fault somehow. I don't know what that line of thinking serves, except in this situation, it basically says men will be men. They can't help themselves, they're animals, and I absolutely don't agree with that. I think anyone can be terrible and bad and harmful to others. But I also think that most anyone can be kind and thoughtful and not hurt others. So I think it's person to person and situation to situation. But I don't think that that narrative that we're still fighting serves anyone. I mean, there's a lot of women in the world today that if they were kissed by a man, they would be held accountable for the man's actions, and he has no accountability. Or if there is accountability, she's still going to have a stake in the blame because she was simply there. She made him do it. It's only recently that if a woman's rape case went to court, that if she was wearing underwear or not, if she was drunk, if she was wearing a short dress or something revealing, that if she had multiple sexual partners, you name it, that stuff would be dragged into court by the other attorney. So her character would be called into question. Rape is not about character at all. Except for the perpetrator. That's his character. But it has nothing to do with the person who's been raped. Whether the raper is male or female, whether the person being raped is male or female, it doesn't matter. The character of the rapist is the only thing that should be on trial, right? But Lord John said that it would be very difficult for her and that he will pay for his crimes. He's going to be hung. And this really doesn't sit well with 20th century Brianna. But in the 20th century that she left, early 70s, would have been no different. Well, why were you walking alone? Why did you come back to your hotel by yourself? Why wasn't somebody accompanying you? It was dark. It was late at night. She would have gotten the same drill in the 70s. Seriously, wasn't that different? But in the 18th century, it would make it so her child paid for the circumstance. Her child would be treated differently. And she's unmarried. Well, legally, in their eyes, she's legally unmarried. So it would even been worse, because now she'd be wanton, right? That's very difficult for her. It's very difficult for us to watch. That's a horrible reality of it. And gosh, in some places it's no different today. In some circles it's no different today. The male who conquests, whether it is by consent, it doesn't matter. That is still kind of lauded and applauded in our culture. But a woman who conquests men or other woman is not looked upon highly. She's somehow lesser for it. And it doesn't matter what your politics or religion is. That's a massive inequality of people and just circumstances. And one is being treated totally different than the other. There was a lot in that little scene to kind of unpack. But for Brianna, she really wants justice. But she also knows, after reading her father's letter, Jamie's letter, that she needs to see Bonnet regardless. And she needs to forgive him to release her from the circumstance and to give her baby something better. She needs to let go so she can have a future and so can her baby. And that's a very positive thing. Jamie told her that she should not kill him. Doesn't matter by whose hand, but it shouldn't be hers. And she took that to heart because he was raped and tortured, and he was able to forgive. That is not something we saw on screen directly, but I think it's inferred that TV Jamie forgave. And he's trying to counsel her properly what to do in this circumstance so it doesn't eat her alive and it doesn't continue to harm her. Because that's what the act of forgiveness is. Forgiving somebody else has something to do with the other person in most circumstances, and you're releasing them, and you're often going to re-engage in relationship with them, right? The act of forgiveness in a case where you are not trying to resume a relationship, begin a relationship, or really connect with somebody, you're trying to disconnect from them. That's the scenario that Brianna finds herself in, and it's in order to give herself freedom in her life and a starting over point. It has nothing to do with Stephen Bonnet. It has nothing to do with making him feel better, taking him off the hook. It's really only about her and her baby. So Lord John is protective. He says, I'm not sure that means taking afternoon tea with a murderer. I love that line. Because he thinks at first that she wants to witness his execution. And he's like, no, I'm not taking you. You shouldn't go. But then she says that she simply wants to talk to him and gives him Jamie's letter. And this softens him, and he, at that point, understands, and he's going to help her get into the jail and go see Stephen Bonnet. So arriving in town, Brianna is unsure. It becomes very real to her, and she misses her mother. Like, she says all these things that kind of don't make sense, like we all would do, when you're trying to say, oh, no, it's just this, but then you're like, oh, this is really hard. I don't know if, I know I need to do this, and I want to do it, but it's hard. And so she lets Lord John see her trying to work this out as they're in town and going to walk over to where the jail is. He also misses Claire sometimes. He says especially when he's sick, but he just thinks that she's a remarkable woman. I like that part. This is another piece that connects Brianna and Lord John together as friends, that they have a commonality. And though he's conflicted about what she's going to do, he's willing to walk her through it and make sure she's able to do it in the safest way possible. I mean, could we love Lord John any more than we already do? So he just supports her. And they go arm in arm. There's a really funny continuity error where she's not wearing a cape and then wearing a cape. I don't know if you noticed it. And when they get into the jail, they're expected, because he sent word through Governor Tryon that he wanted to see a prisoner. So he goes in there, and she insists on talking to Bonnet by herself. So he's just going to wait kind of down the hall as safely as possible for her. But he's not totally going away. He's not waiting outside. So he's there. Brianna goes and talks to Bonnet. He eventually remembers Brianna. She says her name, because he didn't know what her name was. Her first name. She's Brianna Fraser. Her parents are Claire and Jamie Fraser. And so now she's owning Jamie as well in this moment. Like, he's her father, and she understands that. So she's claiming that out loud in front of Stephen Bonnet. So it sounds like in the act of going and forgiving Bonnet, she's also forgiving her father for what he did. So Bonnet goes to tell her, he's chained to the wall and he's doing his Bonnet thing. Gosh, he face acts so great. He's so malevolent, even when he's not. So he tells her that if she's come for the jewels, that he used them to buy a ship. And Brianna tells him why she's there. Like, she's in shadow while he's talking to her for the most part, and then she moves forward and she comes into the light. And she forgives him for what he did. And he just looks at her kind of with a cocky face, and she rubs her belly. And then he's like, oh, other lasses have been trying to pin babies on me before. And then she talks to him, and she says, why would she lie? Yada, 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 right? And he seems very perplexed by why she's here. And after she says her piece, she turns to go, and he says, but not forgotten. Because she wants him to have a little piece that, as he goes to his death, that something of him might be left here. But we don't know if it's his baby. I mean, I still don't know why she says that. That has been something that has baffled me since I've read this book the first time. And it baffles me watching her say it. Reading it was weird enough, but seeing her tell him that, I'm like, but you don't know for sure. You could have said this might be your baby. But she didn't. She basically tells him that this is his baby. Absolutely. And is she saying that to protect herself in case it isn't Roger's baby? Or is it simply to give him something to hold on to because he's going to die next week? I never have figured that out. So if you have insight, let me know. Contact at adramaofoutlander.com or 719-425-9444 is a voicemail line. So when he says that he won't be forgotten, she tries to remain calm, but she cannot. She turns back around. She gets really close to him and says he will be forgotten. The baby will never know his name, never know of his existence. And she lays into him. And what switched in him? I don't know, but he decides to dig out the jewel he's been hanging out, I don't know where in his mouth, in his cheek. Dig it out and hands her the last gem that he has for the maintenance of the child. So, she got a gem. Go through the stones. No, she can't go through the stones this late in pregnancy. However, it looks like now she's sitting at many months pregnant, though I do find it fascinating that they didn't actually pad her bra, because most women actually grow quite heartily in the chest when they are pregnant. Some don't, but most women do. Or it could have just been how the clothing binds you down, that her breasts would have been flattened anyway. And that baby bump was real low. So her faux baby is hanging out real low. So she doesn't want the gem, and he just says it's his last wish, and she takes it. And while she's in there, Fergus and the regulator boys have put powder around the outside of the jail. And then they have, by gun, forced themselves into the jail where they're going to break Murtagh free. And they run into, Fergus runs into Lord John, or vice versa. They notice each other. And Lord John is just standing there. Okay. Fergus doesn't like Lord John because, he's buddies with Tryon. Well, of course he would be. He's a British subject. So they decide to go get Murtagh. Brianna comes down. She's like, Fergus, what are you doing here? What's going on? So there's your Providence. Coincidence. And they figure it out. Murtagh comes out. They drop the keys on the floor right in front of Bonnet's cell where he can get his little foot out there and grab them. We see him grabbing at them. We have to presume he got them and unlocked himself. So we learn that the jail's going to blow up. Okay? So they all rush out. And Brianna insists they take the guard that's been knocked down on the inside because he's not going to die. She doesn't care about Bonnet one whit. But they get the other guy and they head on out. So they're not long outside and there's a big explosion. The funny thing about that is the explosion comes from the inside when we see them putting all the powder on the outside. I'm shrugging my shoulders right now. Who? Okay. So, considering that they weren't inside before, I don't know. Anyhow, that was kind of funny. So we have to presume that Bonnet indeed unlocked himself and escaped, even though he didn't come out the front. There's probably a back door, right? For deliveries? I don't know. One thing that was interesting before they all left the jail is that Murtagh and Lord John have a confrontation. And Murtagh doesn't want Lord John having anything to do with Brianna, and he'll take her back to River Run. He's a fugitive. He was a fugitive before, but now he's a super fugitive. So, Murtagh, I think it's testosterone poisoning talking. So it's actually better for Brianna that Lord John is a friend of Tryon because she's under his protection. Like, Murtagh doesn't know that they're fake engaged. He doesn't know any of that. So, fine. He just agrees, and because he doesn't want Brianna getting hanged for being seen with him. All right. So Lord John and Brianna make their way out. The Murtagh and it is put underneath the flap of the back of the wagon with all of the household goods, as is Fergus and Marsalis, and with the baby in the basket behind her. They're the getaway vehicle. I love that. I love Marsalis. She's such a good character, and it's so fun to see her fleshed out on screen. So they get away. I love how the building of Brianna and Lord John's relationship is between them. She can actually be vulnerable, and she can see herself better, and she's growing in leaps and bounds. She has changed so much since Roger left. She's really come into her own. She's come into her voice. She's a mother. Like, she's thinking like a mother, and she's protecting her baby. She's thinking about the future in a completely different way. And as the reality of what's going on is the shock has worn off, she's more focused in what she wants to do and who she is. And her defining love means doing whatever you need to do. Sticking the course, right? And she still loves Roger, but there's a lot that has gone on since they've seen each other. They're not the same people who were stupidly bickering in the night of their handfast, right? That's not her anymore. There's a strength in her that she has been able to find and groom in these months. And Lord John has really helped with that. But she's been able to see it and start healing on her own through her art and through her actions and what her choices are. She's really dealing with, what do I have in front of me right now? She's not dealing with, what do I wish was going on? She's very clear. And she's devoted. And she's loyal to love, whether it's to Roger or the baby or to her parents. That's what she's doing. So I put under purpose and friendship. This is where I really put Fergus and what his actions and Marsali's actions are. So Fergus and the other regulators refused to let Murtagh stay in jail and be sentenced to hang. Okay, and Fergus kind of hatches a plan for that. Marsalis immediately jumps on board and supports the plan because she knows her husband needs to have a purpose. She's like, and she did like a total 180 from not wanting Murtagh in her house and being annoyed at the regulators and being very concerned about their future to Murtagh doing a solid and inviting Fergus to kind of join the regulator gang, right? So she's seeing that regardless of what the outcomes might be, she's supporting her husband, and she knows that it's giving him confidence that he needs, and it's giving him the purpose that he needs. And she's a spitfire, that one. And the funny thing is that Brianna misses her mother, Lord John misses Claire, and Fergus and Marsalis miss Claire and Jamie as well. And I was like, how funny is that? So it's WWJCD. What would Jamie and Claire do? Because they want to know. Fergus was missing me lord, and Marsalis was like, yeah, well, Claire single-handedly broke Jamie out of Wentworth. You know, like, she knows the story. So she's like, Claire is a badass, and I can be one too. So they're drawing from their strength of Jamie and Claire and what they're able to do. They're drawing on knowing them and what is possible. So they decide to do this. And it's really reconnecting Fergus and Marsalis in a different level. And he calls her, the most incredible woman. And I think it's really cute because she's, 16 in the show when they got married? So she's 17? That's a tall order to live up to for your life. But and they decide that they're going to go to the Ridge. So that's how we get to the place of, that's the future, the Providence that they're focusing on and planning for. So she's going to pack all their stuff. They had a really nice apartment. So some of that must not have been their stuff because that wagon was full, but it wasn't overloaded with the stuff. So she left some things behind. She took what they needed. And that's the getaway vehicle, right? So I just love that picture of her sitting there patiently waiting, or impatiently waiting, with the baby in the basket behind her as her co-pilot. And then they burn rubber. Well, as much as you could burn rubber with a horse. But they burned rubber out of Wilmington. I love that. Because Fergus has really bonded with Murtagh. And ultimately so is Marsalis. And they consider him very important and consider him family. And so they had to do this. Whether or not she would have been on board prior doesn't matter because this is where she's at in her relationship with Murtagh now. And with her wisdom in looking at her husband and what he needs. So Brianna's gone through this major ordeal. Just in all these months. It's a lot of processing, a lot of the unknown. She's worried about Roger. She's been angry. She's been anxious. She's having bad dreams. So she's doing all these things while she's growing this baby. And we see her kind of come to that transformation of really coming into her own as Brianna, the adult, the mother, the friend. And we get to see her maturing in this process. So what's going on with Roger? So again, I said biding time, kindness, reflection, conflict, and crushing reality. So Roger finishes the ritual, right? Well, in the end of the prior episode, we see him getting knocked out at the end. So he must have gotten up again, because what we saw as the finishing of his induction into the village, where they were throwing stuff and punching him and kicking him and trying to knock him down, is that he didn't get punched at the end. So looks like it was 2 different takes, and they just showed us both. So I'm just going to say, yeah, so Roger didn't get knocked out. He got up again. And this was the finishing of his induction into the village. Okay. And he is told that he's going to remain captive. So whether or not he did a good job, as they were like beating the heck out of him, and his arm is injured, like it looks like he has a broken arm. Not sure, because we just see him holding it to himself, and he's pretty messed up. We don't know how much time is going by. It looks like the continuum is slightly different, what we're seeing with Brianna. But we know it's been months, but we don't know how long he's been at the camp after the beginning. We just know he's going to be a captive, but his arm is slinged, and he's still in really major pain over it. But he's put to work as a camp slave. So I don't know, has it been a day? A week? It couldn't be that long, because he makes a major cultural gaffe down the line. So he's taking wood in a basket and taking it to the different sites where people are sitting. And as he's going there, he meets a young mother. And I don't know how to pronounce her name. I couldn't really get it clear while I was watching it. And I will call her Jo. Johan. And she's got a beautiful baby with her. Oh, that baby. I just wanted to like mush on that baby and kiss that baby and snuggle. But she offers Roger medicinal help to help with the pain in his injured arm. So she gives him an herb that he can chew on. I was thinking, what is that? What naturally grows there that's good pain management? Is it willow bark? I don't know. That might help, but I don't know what other things she would have given him. So he meets her, and she's really kind, and he asks her to help him get away, and she's like, no, you need to heal. You need to get stronger. And Keratin, the young warrior, right, Mohawk, who was with Roger as he was walking, walking, he's got eyes for Johan, right? I know I'm saying that's wrong. I apologize, but I'm going to do my best, because those two are really important. He really has eyes for her, and he's mad that she's talking to Roger. He comes over, and he doesn't treat Roger very well. And he has a gift for Johan, and he hopes it brings her peace. And she does this remarkable thing where she touches him and talks about where peace comes from, and like it comes from inside of us. So basically, are you going to war, or are you going to be peace? So she said that really men have the choice of what to be. So when Roger is putting wood at the area where Johan and Kjartan are sitting, he breaks a rule when he speaks over the young man and is put into a hut. And she goes to Roger's defense and says he doesn't know our ways. He's not been here long enough. He doesn't know that you're not supposed to speak when someone's speaking or to point at people. Like, he has no idea. And one of the things about Roger that's really perplexing to Kjartan is, why did his people sell him? Did he have bad loyalties? Does he without honor? Like, what did he do? Like, why is he here? Because Roger shouldn't be eyeballing Johan. He's jealous. He thinks that Roger is like trying to weasel his way in with the woman, which he's not doing. This is really shocking to Roger. So he's put into this hut because he broke a cultural rule. And gets thrown on the ground, and he's in great pain because of his arm, and someone starts talking to him. It happens to be Père Alexandre Ferrigot, a priest. And Roger starts speaking French to him, and then they speak English. So I don't know if they're supposed to be speaking French this whole time. Probably. But the Mohawks, many of them seem to know English. So I don't know. And what we find during the conversation between Roger and Père Alexander is that love is the common denominator, but they're on different sides of the coin. Like, Alexander says, his story and why he refuses to baptize his own baby, because he's a priest who found love with the woman and then had a baby with her, and he's not in a state of grace, and he cannot baptize the baby. And as this unfolds, it's really interesting to see Roger arguing for the priest to just baptize the baby or to do some other, recite the Lord's Prayer over him and pretend to baptize the baby, because who's going to know? It's not like the Mohawk know all the ins and outs of Catholicism and why the father initially said no to doing it, the intricacies of the faith and being a priest and what all of that means. And at first I was very upset that Roger was doing this, but it was Roger's way of processing what has happened to him and the situation he's in. I mean, geez, he just found out he's in New York. Very far away, and what village he's in, and that his nickname meant dogface, because American Indians are not hairy people, like bodily, and Roger is very hairy. So they start having this really interesting and painful discussion to watch, where the priest is trying to explain his ways and Roger keeps blaspheming, and they're just clashing, and Roger's trying to get to the heart of it and the priest is trying to explain the heart of it, but really it's Roger just figuring his own stuff out. In these moments he actually is someone to talk to, and he hasn't had that before. I mean, it took months to get to this village, and since the other prisoner died, he's had no one to talk to at all, except for himself. That's a very tough place to be. When you have all these things you need to say and do, and you have all these emotions, feelings, thoughts, and there's no one to help you decipher them, of course he's going to kind of vomit on this priest, right? And it's more about him than it is the priest and the priest's circumstance. And he's not, I don't think, purposely trying to lead the man astray from his beliefs and his faith and why he's choosing to do what he's doing. So the bottom line for the priest is that if he refuses to baptize the baby, then they're going to kill him. He will burn in a fire from the feet up slowly. So the priest is taken away and given one more opportunity to baptize the baby, and he refuses, and he's naked. He was stripped naked. He was going to stand naked in front of his God, and then he gets thrown back in the hut, and his ear's been cut off. Oh, ow. And Roger cares for him and gives him water and cleans him up and covers him. And they continue to have this conversation. And Roger had been looking for a weak spot in the hut, and he found a place to start digging. And they start to dig together. I mean, this was after Roger calls the priest an idiot for choosing to die instead of saving himself. And Roger goes on this whole diatribe about how he's an idiot for falling in love and following this woman and crossing time and space and marrying her. And then they end up bickering after they were handfast and everything fell apart. It was stupid. He's an idiot. And then he had escape right in front of him, and he didn't take it. He's like, I should be in it for myself. I should just be in it to save me, and so should you. So this is Roger really just batting it around and hammering out what he needs to do. It isn't really Roger doubting his love for Brianna, but he's been through a really difficult experience himself, and he's trying to hash it out, and he has someone to talk to. It was really difficult for me to watch Roger saying these things and acting in the way he was and being like, piss off, love, and do it all for yourself, and taking that tack with the priest too, especially Roger understanding really why the priest would take the stance that he did. And at one point, Roger just prayed over him, and I thought that was so beautiful. And they start digging together in that weak area that Roger found, and they're digging and digging and digging, and Roger feels just terrible because, you know, the hole's about as big as a cat could fit through, and it's useless, and he's really getting down. I know he's really a negative Nelly. For good reason. And then we hear the Mohawk outside making noise, like they're preparing for something. And the priest knows what it is. He knows they're coming for him, and so he announces that he's choosing to stay and die because his conscience says he must. So he's dying because he loves a woman and he loves his child, and he believes that by doing that, he has sinned so badly against God. Even though Roger's like, find a priest, you have options. Before that, you have options. You can get absolution. You can run away with your lover and baby and start a new life somewhere. He sees choices, right? The thing is, Roger thinks he screwed up all his choices. So he's trying to give the priest all these choices, but the priest is just like, I'm not in a state of grace. I can't do that. I broke my vows. And is this Roger saying, is this going to be Roger's understanding somewhere in here that he broke his vows by leaving Brianna that night? That he broke something sacred in that? I'm wondering how this will affect Roger in the next episode. Roger is devastated and angry because men had come and taken the priest out. And Roger just continues to go back to digging. And he ends up digging his way out of the hut to the screaming of Père Fergus. He runs away. And he hears the man scream again, and he runs. Is that really Roger? Is he really in it for himself? Can he run knowing that this man is going to die a slow, torturous death? And Roger starts talking to himself. He tries to talk himself out of going back to help the priest have a faster death, to do something. He knows he can't save him, but to do anything. And he's calling himself a fool and an idiot because he knows all the things that he said about love, all the things he said about just doing it for yourself and being, put yourself number one, no matter what. He knows that's not what his character is like. He knows he can't run away knowing this other man is dying for his convictions, or with his convictions, for his convictions. And we see the priest on the pyre, and he's tied to a wooden pole, and he's burning from the feet up slowly. And so is his lover, standing in the very front holding the baby. And she can't believe what she's seeing. The Mohawk warriors, the leaders, watch for a moment and they start to turn and walk away because it's done. This man is dying because he refused to baptize the baby. And they're following through their judgment. And we see Roger running. And he runs back through the village, toward the father, and grabs a cask along the way. I don't know where they got alcohol at all. They must have picked it up somewhere. So he picks up this alcohol cask, and Keratin rushes toward him, trying to stop Roger from what he's going to do. Because he's breaking a rule, right? He's breaking their customary way of burning somebody. So he heaves that cask, and there's no talking. From the time that Roger stopped muttering to himself and turned back toward the village, it was just music and images. So stunning. And on the second watch, my heart was in my throat even more than the first. And I was just crying. Like I couldn't even see to type my notes as I'm watching. And I had to keep pausing it so I could dab my face. Even just thinking about it. Man, powerful. So we see him throw this cask and it just conflagration, right away. And we know this is going to hasten the father's death. It's what he did was for the love of another human. He did this for a friend. He put himself at risk for helping this man because he couldn't change the outcome, so he was going to make it quicker. And so Johan kisses her baby in that way that she's going to do something. Kisses her baby, looks at her baby, and places him safely on the ground. And she starts crying. And she walks into the flame to join her lover. And Keratin is imploring her. He's screaming. We don't hear any of it, but we just see him panicking as he sees her walk toward the pyre and grab onto her lover and climb up and hug him. He is devastated, and the emotions coming across his face. I'm like, yeah, that's what we all feel like. Roger's face at what she chose for love. Because she understood why the priest would not baptize the child. She got it. And she couldn't let him die alone. I think that is also going to serve to be a foundational lesson to Roger about the unconditional nature of love, about the force of love, about all the stuff he was saying wasn't true. He's not a fool. The priest wasn't a fool. The woman wasn't a fool. Right? And Keratin is so devastated, and he looks around and sees the baby, and he picks the baby up, and at first you're like, oh my gosh, is he going to throw the baby in the fire? Like, this is not Game of Thrones, so no, he wasn't going to throw the baby in the fire, but I half expected it anyway. And he picks up that baby, and he's just in pieces. He cannot understand what he saw. He can't understand what this young woman just did. And so he just holds the baby as he falls to his knees. It's so moving. Oh, it's tragic. And like, would you do that for love? Oh. And Roger is stunned by the turn of events. And then we see him getting grabbed by the arms off the ground and hauled away. And the last thing we hear, because this is where we finally get voice back. That's it, lads. Take me back to the idiot hut. So we don't have any words except for him muttering to himself about being foolish and stupid and shouldn't go back. And, telling them, all right, just take me back to the idiot hut. And then it goes to black, right? Wow. I know, like on the Drama of Outlander group, somebody who has a background in film and acting and editing was really upset by the editing of this episode. I thought this episode was beautifully done, way above expectation. It was awesome, and I think Karen Campbell really redeemed herself as a writer after Creme de Menthe. That was not a great episode. And I think this one, she did such an amazing job. And it really gave us all the things that we needed. We needed to see Roger struggle. Like we've seen Brianna struggle. Like we really gotten to see her go through the process. And we really needed to see Roger having that doubt and having that kind of breakdown and just verbally vomiting on the priest. Even though ultimately he doesn't really believe that, but he had to say it. He had to try it on. He had to think it. He had to see if that was reality. And he did, and they both are very different. But I don't think either of the scenarios ultimately have hardened them. It's been a huge wake-up call, and it's changed them. And he is really seeing the dangers of the 18th century for what they are. And the implications. And what actions really mean. It's very different. I know he is loyal. And he does honor Brianna by going back. And so when we're looking at freedom, what does that mean? So Brianna believes she has freedom from Bonnet now, that he died in that prison. That's what they think, right? She has freedom from him in the physical sense. Even if the baby is his, she's been able to let go. Murtagh has freedom. Even though he's a wanted fugitive, he's free. And we see by the preview that he's at River Run in the last episode. So, did he go to the ridge and then come back down? I don't think it's really safe at River Run either. I mean, Jocasta knows lots of people, including the law. the priest and his lover find freedom together in death. It's like no matter where they went, no matter, they're going to be together in eternity. And they found freedom that way and paid the ultimate price for loving each other. And really, Fergus gains freedom by having his wife be supportive and just by her actions. And she helps be pivotal in Murtagh gaining his freedom. And so this has really kind of lifted up Fergus's spirits and given him something. His freedom is in purpose. And all that freedom, just like I said, goes back to Jamie's letter. You know, freedom is hard won. In any of these circumstances, Brianna needs to have freedom of bodily autonomy and emotionally, spiritually. Like, she needs that freedom. And she believes that by this action, she's attained that. Roger is still a captive. But Claire and Jamie are getting close, so we see from the preview that they're going in to save him. So Jamie gets to do the action, or try to do the action that he says he's going to do. And this also gives Brianna freedom to love Jamie and be his daughter. She's claimed him. Doesn't matter if she claimed him as her father to a dying man. A supposedly dying man. Good. So I think it's really fascinating, and I think they really have kind of hit those walls and been able to climb over them and get around them and make some sort of peace, because Roger is now at peace even though he's still there. He'll try another way to escape. He's not going to give up. And who knows what the penalty is for helping the priest have a quicker death and breaking another rule, so to speak. But I like that it came back around to the heart of who Roger is. Like, he cannot save himself while somebody else suffers. He's still that guy. He's still the guy who will do the right thing. He's the guy who will be loyal. Friendship is important. So I think it was just amazing. Again, I want to hear your thoughts on all of this. It's contact@adreamofoutlander and 719-425-9444 for the voicemail. And you know where to find the Facebook group. It's A Dram of Outlander, and you have to join by asking and answering a few questions. There's the big A Dram of Outlander page. And also the website, adramafoutlander.com. So there's various places to find the things. And on Instagram and Twitter, it's Dram of Outlander without the A in front. Just for lack of room. So I hope that you've had a fantastic week and you are prepared for the finale. It's only in mere hours now. And I promise I will get that podcast up faster. My work was pretty intensive this week, and I also came down with a bit of a cold, which you can probably hear. I think I'm holding it off. It started out really terribly day before yesterday, and I think I'm doing all my herbal things and natural things, and it's really helping. But I'm hoping it doesn't get worse from here. And I haven't lost my voice. This is the third cold I've had in, 6 months, which is very unusual for me. So I love the direction that this episode went, and it included so much. And it'll be interesting to see how much is going to be in the finale, because there's a lot of book left after the events that we've seen. So it's going to be really fascinating to see how it's wrapped up. After this episode and a couple other episodes this season, I'm thinking it's going to be quite good. And we're all going to be just emotionally exhausted come Monday morning. And I'm curious, what do you think about how long it will take for season 5 to come out? I'm guessing January 2020. That's my vote. I'm saying it. I'm committing to it. But for the most part, I think people really enjoyed this episode. And I've only seen a couple of negative comments. And the biggest thing from this episode that people complained about, but there wasn't in Jamie and Claire. Here's the thing. Jamie and Claire are the main characters. They're never going away. However, there are lots and lots of secondary characters. I mean, we have the whole life of Fergus and Marsalis. We have Brianna and Roger. We have Murtagh. We have River Run. We have all of these people who are important. Jamie and Claire do not exist in a vacuum. They exist inside of a life. And some argue they're fictional. But it's really how they interact, their impact, and all the characters, how they interact with Claire and Jamie. Or to Jamie. Because Diana says it's really his story, not Claire's. Ultimately, it's how everybody interacts with him and all the stories surrounding his life and who he is. So they're the central element. But without character development of all these other secondary characters, what's the point? What's the point of their life? What's the point of the stories? So I thought that was very bizarre that people, or some people, freaked out over there not being Jamie and Claire in this episode. Except I think there was supposed to be a little bit more, but we just saw them traveling as the narration of Jamie's letter was being read in Jamie's voice. But it's not always going to be about them. And this episode was, like, I think the best rated in this season. And it barely had them in it. The spirit of them can be there. But we do need to know these other characters and care about them and see them grow and watch their storylines move forward. Absolutely. And something very disturbing happened recently to Matt Roberts. He's one of the writers. And he's the one who always posts those really beautiful pictures. But he actually deleted his Twitter account or deactivated it because fans were personally attacking him. Fans. That is insanity. This is a television show based on an incredibly popular book series. It's one thing to have a criticism. I have criticisms. It's another thing to personally attack one of the producers. To the point where his beautiful Instagram account is now private. So if you were already following him, you can still follow him. But if you weren't following him and decided you wanted to, you have to put in a request and you may or may not be able to. I mean, and he says it's all well and good. He's just not going to put his time and energy into that sort of thing. But you may not like the choices that are made on the television show. Please don't watch. If you don't like what they're doing with the characters, I mean, intrinsically don't like it. If you have nothing positive to say or pull from it, don't watch. But the idea that there's a subset of people who will attack somebody from the show that has been very open to talk to fans and to interact we really have no right to have access to them. And for him to be run off of Twitter because it was so ugly. I didn't get to see the ugliness of it, except for a little bit. I just don't understand. I don't understand why anybody believes that they have a right to other people and that they have a right to be nasty and mean. You don't. Critiquing something, if it doesn't make sense to you, if you don't kind of like some of the choices, fine. That's part of watching a show. You're not going to love everything, whether or not you read the books, because the books are, really beside the point when you're looking at good TV. Is it done well? Is it done well? Does it make sense in the context of the characters they have adapted for television, for the storylines that have been adapted for television? Does it make sense? Does it flow? Is it quality writing? Does it intrigue you? But to go and personally attack one of the producers is beyond the pale. Like, stop. I hope none of my listeners participated in anything like that, or none of the people who are on the Facebook group. I would just be so upset about that. We have lost all civility and our minds with social media because we believe there's this kind of sense of anonymity. There's real people behind every single account, unless they're bot accounts. But there's real people. Matt Roberts is a real human being. And he shouldn't have been treated like garbage on social media. Yeah, it's probably none of you would ever consider doing that who listen to my podcast, or probably the other podcast either. But I'm just appalled. And so please, if you see this nasty behavior, shut people down. Tell them they're wrong. Report their accounts, because it's abusive to do this kind of stuff, and it's bullying. We shouldn't be standing by in this fandom and allowing it to happen. Call people out. Do the right thing. I report accounts as bullying or abusive or harassing when I see stuff like that. Yeah, block those people. So please, don't just sit idly by. I'm not saying any of you are, because we're all real people. And, recently in the Drama Outlander group, we've had to delete a few comments. It says right there in the group rules, you can disagree, but kind and respectful discourse is expected. People can disagree and not be a-holes to each other and not be mean and not say rude stuff. You actually can. You can coexist in the world with people of all different flavors, sizes, and philosophies and beliefs. Because it's not all about you and it's not all about me. And if we see comments that are nasty, we just delete them. I'm like, we don't have to tell the person who made them. It says it will be deleted. I don't have to explain it to the person I deleted it. If they scroll back through and see that it's deleted, they can message me or one of the other admins. And we will kindly tell why we did that. But we don't allow that in the group. And there's almost 1,400 people in it. And so yes, people are opinionated, but words are powerful. And I'm like, if you're going to say something that you think might not be all right, that you think will be nasty, you read it out loud to yourself. And before you hit enter, really question whether or not it is respectful discourse. If everybody practiced that on social media, we wouldn't have some of the really obnoxious stuff that we see and the hateful things that we see. So, Yeah, be kind out there, please. And kindness doesn't cost you a damn thing. And it doesn't mean that you have to wholesale agree with somebody or kiss their booty or never can have a criticism or a disagreement. It means that you're going to treat another human being like a human being and be humane and be respectful because they're another living, breathing human, whether it's in social media that you're in their presence or in person. And if you wouldn't say it to somebody in person, certainly don't write it. I think words have so much power and they matter so much. And you can't take them back, even if they're deleted. Once they're seen, you really can't take them back. So please be kind. Please be respectful and have amazing, challenging conversations with people where you really don't have to agree on anything. And, I've been very proud of the group so far and how we've been able to really have some pretty major discussions about things, and people remain adults and remain civil with each other. So I know this was long-winded at the end, but I think it's really an important topic. It is very easy to be a mean girl or a mean boy out there and to hurt other people with your words. You know that old kid saying, sticks and stones may break my bones, but words can never hurt me? It's a total lie. It's far easier to heal from a broken bone. I'd rather get punched in the face than have somebody say mean, hurtful things to me, because those things never go away. They're always there once they're spoken. So I'm appreciative of you all, and I'm very thankful for the amazing listeners and the amazing people that are part of the group and are on the page, and just how much you actually care about other people. Because I care. I really care. And I have seen wonderful interactions, and I want those to continue. And I just hope that at some point Matt Roberts can come back on Twitter and actually interact, because we're really losing something. You don't have to agree with him or even like what he does, but it was valuable nonetheless. So, all right. So next is the finale, and I promise I'll get the podcast up faster. I might be able to even get it up tomorrow. We'll see. After the show airs, of course. And I hope that you have a wonderfully blessed week, even if it's a hard week. Even if everything is not simple, that you still find some joy in it. And I'm glad to be part of your week, and I thank you for inviting me into your space over and over again. And I look forward to that Fiery Cross read-along. I did a poll, and everyone's like, just do whatever you want. Whatever you're doing works. And so I posted the schedule on the group, and I'll post it to the page and make an event for it and put it on the website. I might write a post about it as well. But we're going to cover it, and it's going to be about 48 weeks. Yeah, and right about then, the show should come back. So that's what I'm thinking. I'm thinking I'm going to finish Fiery Cross, and we're probably going to have about a week or two before the show comes back. That's my guess. It's totally a guess, 100%. I literally know nothing. So again, please drop me an email, contact@adramaofoutlander.com. Leave me a voicemail, 719-425-9444. Your comments, questions, thoughts could be used in a future podcast. I always try to respond to them. And if you want to help the podcast financially, patreon.com/adramaofoutlander. And after the season wraps up, I will be working on some A Drama of Outlander kind of cute products, like little shot glasses and So if there are any sayings that you really like, then hey, or things that I've said that you like, then we can put them, make little hashtags out of them and put them on the things. But I'm going to probably do shot glasses, maybe t-shirts and tote bags, stuff like that. But it's going to be my own thing so we don't get in trouble with copywriting. And go from there. So patreon.com/A Dram of Outlander, even $1 a month helps me. And if you want to make an individual gift to me to run the podcast and to do all the things that it takes, then just contact me by email or the voicemail, or even on Facebook. It's just under my name. So I thank you, and I so look forward to spending the next podcast and the next year with you. And until next time, Slán Живá.